Chapter 7. Doubts. 10 a.m. I woke up and my back screamed at me that I was too old to sleep on the couch. I got up slowly, while stretching and pushing myself back as much as I could to try to straighten them out again. I went to the bedroom to see if she was still asleep, but the bed was empty. I immediately thought she had left again. That's when I saw the door to the terrace opened and headed there. It was sunny, although the day was cold, and there was a mist that had not yet dissipated, allowing visibility to a considerable distance, but causing the horizon to fade into shades of grey, seeming to limit the world around. The door to the stairs leading down from the terrace to the beach was open. I looked for her on the beach. I finally saw her, engulfed in the waves of a rough sea, without any trace of fear, surrendering to them. As I grabbed a blanket to protect myself from the cold, she saw me and came out of the water completely naked, walking along the beach back home. She climbed the stairs and greeted me with a radiant smile. I confess that her nudity was disturbing, not only because of the nudity itself, but also because I was there huddled under a blanket, and she was there with her wet skin exposed to the cold, and it didn't seem to bother her in the slightest.
Good morning, sleepyhead. Don't look at me like that. It's not like there's anything in my body you haven't seen before.
But, in a certain way, there was. Interestingly, what I felt wasn't desire, it wasn't lust, but rather it was akin to the feeling in the presence of something perfect, grandiose. I observed her in the perfection of her forms, in the fluidity of her movements. I felt intimidated and overwhelmed by her beauty. Sorry, I finally stammered. I didn't mean to embarrass you. I must seem like a teen.
You didn't embarrass me.
Still, sorry.
You're forgiven. Have you eaten?
No, I just woke up, didn't find you and saw the door open.
What if we had something to eat?
The grumbling of my stomach announced to me that it might be a good idea. We went in, drank orange juice, and had toast. I didn't speak much because almost everything that came to my mind were questions I didn't want to bother her with. She was in a very good and jovial mood. After breakfast, we went to the terrace. We sat down. She stretched out a bit in the deck chair and enjoyed the sun, which was getting stronger and gradually dispelling the mist. I looked at the sea, trying to put my thoughts into perspective. She was the one who broke the silence.
Yesterday you said you had a question and a request.
Yes, I did ask the question.
That you did. And do you still want the answer?
Of course.
As I told you, my name appears only once in the Bible or the Torah, in the book of the prophet Isaiah. Modern translations of the Bible have removed my name from the verse in question, but it was there. Nowadays you read, "And the wild beasts of the desert shall meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow, the screech owl also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest." But what should be there is, "And the wild beasts of the desert shall meet with the wild beasts of the island, and the satyr shall cry to his fellow, Lilith also shall rest there, and find for herself a place of rest." Now, in Jewish tradition, any name that appeared in the sacred texts had to have a story behind it. The rabbis themselves believed that the texts should be analyzed to find references or coincidences to try to give meaning and history to any name. It was this tradition that led to the creation of the Midrashim.
Yes, I've read something about that, but weren't the Midrashim only written around the 1st century BC?
Written, yes, but they come from a tradition that asserts that the Bible can only be understood through 2 points of view. What is written and something that was passed down only in oral tradition, from parents to children. Knowing one part without the other leads to an incomplete interpretation of the texts.
I see.
When my name appears in that verse, the entire text was searched for something that would lead to me, in light of this tradition, and that's how they discovered me in the creation alongside Adam. Does this answer your question?
Yes, but it raises even more doubts.
Of course it does, but we have to take it slow. You also had a request, didn't you?
Yes, it's also a question. but it's somewhat extensive, so I'd rather present it as a request.
Go ahead, then.
There's something that confuses me about everything you've said. According to science, the age of the Earth is about 4.5 billion years, while the age of the universe is approximately 12 to 13 billion. However, creationism points to something much more modest, between 6,000 and 7,500 years, as you yourself stated. How does this fit together? She laughed.
I understand why that's a request. It's really something complicated. But I'll try to explain it to you.
She paused as if to organize her thoughts.
The Bible states that the universe was created in 7 days, but the text is not at all literal. That's just the first chapter of Genesis. As I told you, the second chapter has a different tone.
Yes, you mentioned that.
Have you ever thought about the characteristics that God is said to have?
Well, he's eternal, omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient.
And all the others, but look at what happens after the first chapter. In chapter 4, verse 14, it is stated that Cain withdrew from the presence of the Lord. But he could never do that, being God omnipresent. In chapter 6, verse 6, the Lord repents of having created man. Now, being omniscient, how could he repent of something he already knew would happen? Only if he's not omniscient, and with this, 2 characteristics of God have already been taken away. What do you think this means?
Well, that tells me that being is not really God.
That's right. He is not.
Then who is God, after all?
No one knows, although it is known that he exists. God is the creator of everything, but absolutely everything, and he doesn't need the existence of the universe to exist. He existed before creating it and will continue to exist after it disappears.
And does he really have all those characteristics?
There's one that's slightly different. He's not eternal, he's timeless and extemporaneous. This means that he has all the other characteristics exactly because he exists outside of time. He's in the past, present, and future at the same time, and therefore, he's also omniscient. Basically, it's as if for him, everything that exists, including time, is condensed into a thought, or even better, into an image created by himself of which he knows every detail, and it doesn't go beyond that. So, everything that exists, will exist, or has existed is permanently in his presence.
But practically, doesn't that imply that if he created absolutely everything, he's also the creator of evil?
What is evil? Evil is just a relative concept. The fact that there is a God who is the source of all good and something that opposes him, which is the source of all evil, is just convenient, as it absolves the individual. What we do that is bad is blamed on the influence of something external, and what happens that is good is also blamed on that. This, Miguel, is just human nature at work and has nothing divine or demonic about it.
Yes, but does good and evil really exist?
Do you think so? Tell me, if you look at a lion and a gazelle. The lion eats the gazelle.
It's just something natural.
Yes, but if you look at the world from the gazelle's perspective, the lion must be the embodiment of evil. And if it were, then the lion should feel remorse for eating the gazelle, don't you think?
That would be ridiculous. The lion needs to eat the gazelle to survive, and even to maintain natural balances.
Exactly. The concept of good and evil stems from the fact that we cannot understand the mechanisms that surround us, and therefore, everything that harms us is considered evil. But it doesn't work like that.